Namaskar friends. The topic for our discussion for today is the Women's Reservation Bill. Before the introduction of the bill, the Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi said before the introduction of the bill in the Lok Sabha, and I quote, discussion on the Women's Reservation Bill has happened for a long time before the bill is introduced. During Atal Bihari Vajpayee's regime, Women's Reservation Bill was introduced several times, but there was not enough majority to pass the bill, and because of this, the dream remained incomplete. Today, the God has given me the opportunity to take it forward. Unquote. The Union Minister for Law and Justice, Independent Charge, Arjun Ram Meghwal, on September 19, 2023, introduced the bill to reserve 1/3 of the seats in Lok Sabha and State Assemblies for women. As you all know, the 128th Constitutional Amendment Bill relating to women's reservations was passed in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha on 28th of September and 21st of September 2023 respectively. Bharatiya Janata Party in its election manifesto of 2014 and 2019 promised for 33% of women's reservations in Lok Sabha and State Assemblies. Before discussing the bill in detail, let us look at the history of women's reservations in India. Constituent Assembly discussed the women's reservations while framing the constitution, but was felt not needed at that time. It was former Prime Minister Sri Rajiv Gandhi in May 1989 first planted the seed of women's reservation in elected bodies by introducing Constitutional Amendment Bill to provide 1/3 reservations for women in rural and urban local bodies, that is Gram Panchayats and Nagarapalikas. The bill was passed in Lok Sabha but failed to get passed in Rajya Sabha in September 1989. In 1992 and 1993, the then Prime Minister Sri P.V. Narasimha Rao introduced the Constitutional Amendment Bills 72 and 73, which reserved 1/3, that is 33% of all the seats and chairperson's posts for women in local bodies. The bills were passed by both the houses and became the law of the land. Now, lakhs of women were elected to panchayats and nagarapalikas across the country. September 12, 1996, Sri Devegowda led United Front government for the first time introduced the 81st Constitutional Amendment Bill in Lok Sabha to reserve the seats in Parliament and the State Assemblies for women. After the bill failed to get approval in Lok Sabha, it was referred to Joint Parliamentary Committee chaired by Ms. Geeta Mukherjee. The Mukherjee Committee presented its report in December 1996. However, the bill lapsed with dissolution of the Lok Sabha. 2 years later, the Atal Bihari Vajpayee-led NDA government pushed the Women's Reservation Bill in the 12th Lok Sabha in 1998. However, this time too, the bill failed to get the support and lapsed again. It was subsequently reintroduced in 1999, 2002 and 2003 under the Vajpayee-led government, but was not successful. 5 years later, the Manmohan Singh-led UPA 1 government in 2004 tabled it in Rajya Sabha on 6th May 2008. The bill was sent to Standing Committee on 9th May 2008. The Standing Committee presented its report on December 17, 2009, and the bill was passed in Rajya Sabha with 186:1 votes on 9th March 2010. However, the bill has never been taken up for discussion, for consideration in Lok Sabha for various reasons and eventually lapsed in 2014 with the dissolution of Lok Sabha. But this time, Women's Reservation Bill had support of various political parties and hence passed smoothly with two-thirds majority, unlike in earlier instances when several regional parties opposed it. Being the election year, no party could dare to oppose the bill, benefiting nearly 50% of the population. Now let us discuss the key points of the bill. The Women's Reservation Bill is named Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam. The Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam is the first bill to be tabled in the new parliament building. The bill has provided the reservation for women and would continue for a period of 15 years after its commencement and can be extended by the parliament later. The reservation will come to effect after a delimitation exercise is undertaken and after the next census. The reservations do not apply to Rajya Sabha and the State State Legislative Councils. So the process is first census should happen and thereafter delimitation process should be completed and then implementation of women's reservations will happen. We will discuss the delimitation process later in this video. In the total seats reserved for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in the Lok Sabha and State Assemblies, 33% will be set aside for women belonging to those communities. The number of women members in Lok Sabha will rise to 181 from the current number of 82 as per the Law Minister once the reservations are implemented. If the total number of members goes up in Lok Sabha or State Assemblies in future, the seats that would be reserved for women will also be increased accordingly. The statement of objects and reasons of the bill says, the bill seeks greater participation of women as public representative in policy making at the state and national levels. The rotation of seats, reserved seats for women will happen after each subsequent delimitation exercise to be determined by the Parliament by law. The bill is similar to the Women's Reservation Bill drafted in 2010 by the Manmohan Singh government, except the quota for Anglo-Indian community which has been dropped now. At present, women constitutes 14% of parliament and legislatures in India, which is far lower than the global average and hence the reservations. Now let us discuss what is delimitation. The delimitation process is fixing limits or boundaries of territorial constituencies in the country or for a state having a legislative body. The process is carried out by the Delimitation Commission that works in collaboration with the Election Commission of India, involving representatives of various political parties and after considering the opinion of the public as well. So let us look at the composition of this Delimitation Commission. It consists of a retired Supreme Court judge, the Chief Election Commissioner of India, and the respective state election commissioners. When I say the respective state election commissioners, for example, if the delimitation process is happening for the state of Andhra Pradesh, the Andhra Pradesh state election commissioners will be taken into account. If the delimitation process is happening in the state of Uttar Pradesh, the state election commissioner of Uttar Pradesh will be taken into consideration. So what are the main functions of the delimitation commission? One is to determine the number and the boundaries of constituencies to make the population of all the constituencies nearly equal, and to identify seats reserved for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes wherever their population is relatively large. The Delimitation Commission in India is a high-powered body and its orders have the force of law and cannot be challenged in any court. Because if any delimitation process is challenged in the court, our judicial process takes time. Till that time, the election cannot be conducted. So the orders of the Delimitation Commission are final and it cannot be challenged before any court of law. And what are the basic rules that are to be followed by the Commission in delivering its functions? To provide equal representation to equal segments of a population, fair division of geographical areas so that one political party does not have an advantage over other in an election. The basic principle is to be followed by the Commission is one vote, one value. However, these provisions causing the states that took less interest in population control could end up with a greater number of seats in the parliament. To avoid this, the Constitution was amended through 42nd Amendment Act 1976 during Srimati Indira Gandhi's period to suspend the delimitation until 2001 and later postponed during Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee's period until 2026, hoping to achieve a uniform population growth. The last delimitation exercise that changed the state-wise composition of Lok Sabha was completed in 1976 and it was done on the basis of 1971 census. The Constitution of India mandates the allocation of seats in the Lok Sabha should be on the basis of population of each state so that the ratio of seats to population is as close as possible across the states. What are the riders that are put before implementing the Act, that is Women's Reservations? A new article 334A has been introduced in the Constitution which contains these two riders. The riders are once after the first census taken after the commencement of this Act and after delimitation process is completed. Then only the reservations for women can be implemented. Now let us have a look why these riders are put before the implementation of the women's reservations. Only the delimitation commission can allocate the reserved seats for women with due process. And the government or political party cannot do this. And the delimitation can only happen after 2026 as per the Article 82 as discussed earlier. The delimitation process in 2026 should be based on the census happened after 2026 as mentioned in Article 82. Census will give a latest population of the women to form the basis for implementation. So let us look at it. Look at the time period for implementation. To be frank, the date for implementation is not specified, but we can estimate based on the provisions of the law. Article 82 of the Constitution, as amended in 2002, says the delimitation process can be carried out based on the first census taken after 2026. Originally, the first census after 2026 was to be carried out in 2031, which would be followed by delimitation. But the census meant to be held last in 2021, but it was delayed due to COVID conditions, so that the next count might be in 2027. Next census will be digital and will take less time than earlier, and thereafter delimitation may take 1 year. Therefore, 2028 assembly elections, if any, or 2029 Lok Sabha elections, certainly women's reservations can be implemented. But the delimitation process gets postponed, which is supposed to happen after 2026, as mandated in Article 82, as it was done twice earlier. Then the implementation would be in trouble. So the Modi strategy behind the timing of bringing the bill now could be, no party can oppose the bill before the elections, especially in Rajya Sabha, where BJP does not have 2/3 majority. Census of 2021 delayed even after COVID, so that they can be taken after 2026 to comply with the Article 82 for delimitation process. Otherwise, the relevant census after 2026 can only happen in 2031, and thereby further delay of implementation of women's reservation. Of course, political strategy also there before the 2024 Lok Sabha elections. So now, what is the way forward for this women's reservations? Any reservations will reduce the lot size per selection and thereby affecting the merit. That has to be kept in mind. The ideal way in a democracy is for the political parties to groom more women leaders and making them part of policy making and serving the nation. Since it has not happened, the reservations were needed to support the women of this country. Now it is for the political parties to raise and develop women leaders in their parties and make them part in the service of the nation. It should not result in the creation of artificial leadership. Say, for example, if a particular seat is reserved for a woman, giving a chance to a woman member of the same political family irrespective of the merit. Where we have seen in many local bodies, women are elected but their husbands or father calling the shots in their activities. That should not be the case. Finally, it is a great step towards gender equality in the country and increasing the women participation in nation building. Bharat always has the culture of respecting women, and it is a great opportunity for women of this country to take our motherland forward. We together wish all the women of Bharat very all the best. Hope the topic was helpful, friends. Thank you for your time.